Welcome to the Blue Collar Startup podcast where hard work meets big ideas. This is your home for real talk, real stories, and real strategies from the front lines of life and the business of the trades. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Nelson from 5 Towers Media.
And I'm your other host, Derek Foster of Daigle Cleaning Systems. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Your voice is sounding a little scratchy though. I was just thinking you got some head cold going?
I've been battling I got over the flu last week, but I've had just a lingering chest and head cold, and I don't know what it is, if immune systems are suppressed or what, but it hit me pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm on the mend, but I don't sound that great, so I apologize for everybody and to everybody in advance.
Oh, listen, man, it's that vocal fry. People really love the vocal fry. You know, you get that scratchy voice. It's great for podcasts, see. Great for podcasts. So we got to talk a little bit about our new episode formats, although at this point I'm sure everybody's kind of getting familiar with some of the different things we've got going on. We've got the Let's Ask Bill episodes, or the Business Lab with Bill Tansey from the OpEx Shop. Catamount Roundtables with Scott and Stacy and Jason, the team over at Catamount Consulting. We also have got Stacy doing Women in the Trades. She's coming in as a guest host speaker on that, and excited about those episodes. And interviews from the field are people that are either working in or working around people that are in the trades out in the community, and getting those real live updates from the front lines here. And appreciate everybody that comes on the show. Of course, our episode format has changed a little bit for everybody. If you haven't picked up on that, we do our main episode, which is the free portion of the show. You usually 30-ish minutes we're doing here. You can find them on Spotify, Rumble, Apple, and YouTube. And then, of course, we also have our Patreon side of things. It's usually about 15 minutes. We try to keep it to and just asking a couple questions from each one of our guests that pertain specifically to growing and scaling a business in the trades. The content that we put on the main episode is always great, and I think it's almost always usable. But our real objective with the Patreon side is giving real world examples, things you can do, implement this in your business to help people grow and scale, because we all know it is not an easy thing to do in the current environment, growing and scaling a business. So please check out the Patreon side of things. Link will be in the show notes, of course. And let's talk real quick sponsorship opportunities. If you're not familiar with what we do, a big objective for our show is to be able to raise money for kids that are going to trade school, or maybe they're going to something like HVCC, what we call the blue collar college. We're just trying to raise money for them for tools and tuition to help make their lives a little easier. We've done a great job the last few years of doing that. And, we keep pushing that envelope and trying to raise more and more money. That's where those sponsorship dollars go to. Some of it goes to offset the cost of the show, but most of it's going over to those scholarships. So if you're interested in getting involved, please reach out to Derek and myself. Our blue collar email is in the show notes as well. Taylor always puts that in there. So shoot us a note. Love to talk to you about how you can get involved. And shout out real quick to our current sponsors. D, you want to give the shout out since I'm doing all the talking?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start with People Ease, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, Michael's Group Homes, Catamount Consulting, the Northeast Construction Trades Workforce Coalition, Curtis Lumber, my team over at Daigle Cleaning Systems, and Mike's team over at 5 Towers Media.
Yeah. Let's get to our guest. I'm excited about today's show.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this episode for weeks. So, Codey, appreciate you joining us.
Yes, sir. And Jens, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Codey, you want to go ahead and just, give us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about Echelon Front and what you guys were doing over there?
Yes, sir. So I work for a company called Echelon Front. A lot of people know Echelon Front for our top leadership, which is Jocko Wilnick and Leif Babin. Company started back in 2012. And right now we got a good amount of instructors that primarily are military veterans, myself included. So there's 9 Navy SEALs, there's 4 Marines. I do come from the Marine Corps. I served in the infantry, learned real quick about leadership, and more than anything, how it was typically an afterthought, how you're really expected to lead but not taught how to do it. That really transferred over after I got out and I joined Echelon Front. And now I've been here for the last 8 years, where I'm the director of our hands-on training, where instead of teaching via PowerPoint or Zoom, we do it in person and do it that way. But majority of my time is spent I'm on the road probably 225 days a year where I'm teaching anybody and everybody what leadership is, how to get better at it, and how it can lean into your culture and really expand and kind of build up to what you want it to be.
That's amazing. And that was going to be one of my kind of offshoot questions too, was in the, on the website, it says you're I can't remember if it's director, but like the experiential training. And I was trying to understand, like, what does that mean? Like, are they throwing these guys into like situations or?
Yes, sir. So military wise, we have this culmination event. So before any kind of training block or when you go deploy, we're on what's called an FTX, which stands for field training exercise, which basically you test out the skills that you learned. As we started to teach Echelon Front and everything was PowerPoint and presentations and conference settings, we're teaching theory, but theory and reality are two different things. And so we brought to light this FTX program where now individuals, small teams, or companies, they'll put together a group of people. They'll run mission sets just like we did in the military, where we're not there to teach the tactics, but we're here to show you like why winning is so hard. So I was just in Dallas where I ran two FTXs back to back, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, where there was not one vet, one military person, not one first responder. One was a construction company. So we did a corporate FTX. And then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday was 40 people from all walks of life. And what the goal is, hey, you read the book, you understand the principles. We talk about relationships and communicating effectively. Hey, let's try it out. And the nice thing is you learn there where there's zero risk. You're just spending time. So you learn your strengths and weaknesses so you don't have to learn those later inside a business or with your family, because failing there's extreme consequences. Failure at the FTX is a bit of an ego punch, but that's about it. So I've been doing that last 8 years. Selfishly, it's my favorite thing that we do because it teaches in a different way. And for the most of the time, people really start to understand, man, these things are simple, but they're extremely hard. And why are they hard? Because they go against what we like to do.
Yeah, it's interesting as you talk about that. I've been kind of a personal and professional development junkie for like the last 15 years. And, you do workshops, you go to conferences, you do trainings, webinars, you do all this stuff and you get all this knowledge. And this is kind of in line with what you just said, right? But knowledge is one thing, but application of that knowledge is a whole different deal. And, why you end up doing all this stuff. And then you get all these thoughts going on, but then you go home and it's just back to the regular grind, right? And you don't apply any of that stuff. So the experiential training that you guys are doing, this is kind of bridging that gap and putting that into like giving them like, here's the knowledge and here's actually using it scenarios.
Yes, sir. And basically, my goal at the FTX when I have 40 people there is I want to show people who they are. And what's nice is, my job at the FTX, I'll say this slightly, is to stress people out. I don't have to do a whole lot because there's no vets. People have never really, we use laser tag guns to reinforce the principles. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but it's stressful. Why? Because it's brand new. You're with a bunch of people you don't met or you haven't met before. I bring out SEALs and Marines and SWAT team guys, and that's your opposition. And really my stress is I just start a stopwatch and then people go run out and they lose their minds. And what's neat about stress, stress is a relative feeling. I have stress at home with my wife and my 4 kids. It's the same feeling I had when I was in the Marine Corps. It's just different circumstances. But with stress, what I've learned with stress is really hard to hide. It's hard to hide who you are. Your true tendencies come out. And so at the FTX, my goal is I just hold up kind of a gigantic fictitious mirror. And when you leave there, you're like, man, I'm not as good as I thought I was. Or, man, I recognize I'm good at communicating. I want to reinforce that. Man, I struggle with, empowering my people because I didn't do that today. I want to lean in on that and get better at that. So that's the whole goal of the FTX, is to iron out who you are. It's like a real, instead of a self-assessment on paper, it's an in-person assessment where you leave there like, man, I got stuff to work on. I have stuff to reinforce. Let's get back to it and get to work.
What is so you're leaving with that assessment, do you have anything in place that is a follow-up to that for ongoing like reinforcement or maintenance of the things they're learning in those trainings?
Yes, sir. So yeah, the goal at Echelon Front is to build on sustainability. You talked about typical training, whether it's leadership or really any training in itself, is almost this flavor of the month thing where we talk about it. That was great. Like, what's next? With leadership, which is a soft skill that people really overlook. There's a lot to really work on. Like, you're working with people, and people are difficult, whether it's, relationships, getting along, building trust, or communicating effectively with not only your subordinates, peers in leadership, or your vendors, making the right decision at the right time. There's a lot that we build on. So anytime we do a training, we'll send follow-up stuff. We have a bunch of sustainability processes where, we got the book Extreme Ownership. There's a workbook companion. We have a whole online platform to reinforce. And a lot of what we do is I'll go work with a client. Like yesterday, I worked with a client. That was my third time seeing them. So anytime we go out, first iteration is all just baseline. Hey, let's understand what leadership is, what it means, and what are the pillars. Everything else is problem solving. So we'll teach someone relationships, pretty straightforward, but a lot harder than we think, because you're bound to find yourself on a team with people that you don't like, or someone's going to burn your trust, you're going to burn theirs. How do I recover from that? So once we establish a baseline, the sustainability approach is how do we actually problem solve from a team standpoint, individual standpoint, or from a cultural standpoint? And then you look back 3, 6, a year from now. I got some clients I work with for 5 years, and there's no advanced sexy 2.0 tactics. It's just brilliance in the basics. But I think a lot of times we misunderstand or misinterpret, how much work this takes to become more proficient as something as tends to be complex leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. Leadership, it's a tough one. So let's get into the main question set here. Your Echelon Front bio describes your path from frontline designated marksman all the way up to platoon sergeant. You earned leadership from the bottom up. I'm just wondering, for a tradesperson who's currently working for someone else, but has ambitions to own a business one day, what does taking ownership, or that extreme ownership, like the book, right? What does that actually look like when you're not the one that's signing the checks?
Yes, sir. So I think a lot of times people misinterpret what leadership means. We teach leadership. Leadership is your ability to influence people. There's a huge difference between leadership and authority. Most people think leadership is authority. I have a title, I am in charge, therefore I am a leader. That's not necessarily true. I've met plenty of people where they had the CEO tag, or they were my boss, but because of the things that they did, they weren't a leader. They just had the platform to do it. To your point, kind of my bio, I worked my way up through the ranks. I had a billet of kind of long range shooter, eventually took over a small team, big team, and then kind of stepped out of my element and ran a big group. And along the way, I learned like how powerful influence was, because I could be in charge, but it doesn't mean people were necessarily going to follow me. Additionally, a lot of times we think leadership is just me on top of another team and I'm leading down the chain. But I've spent years leading peers, leading upstream, which in my opinion, those are the hardest of the two. Leading down, if you do it right, can be easy. Be really good at your job, support your team, empower them, and just watch them grow. Leading your peers is difficult because, hey, me and Michael are the same age, same experience. I'm trying to get him to do something. I can't really leverage my authority if I have it. And most times we kind of just avoid the conversation. Or Derek's my boss. Leading your boss, that's part of it. And that is the opportunity we have, is sometimes we have to be able to do that. This is really the premise, that the core thing we teach at Echelon Front, the foundational layer, is what we call extreme ownership, which is a tendency, simply put, all responsibility for success or failure is on the individual. That is how, when I go out, I just don't talk to C-suite. I talk to interns, I talk to new people, I talk to anybody and everybody, because we are all responsible for the things that we do. So for me, if people are starting out, they just got into the trades, they have this vision of growing and owning a business, like, it starts now and it's not going to end. Like, my success as a husband, as a father, as a subordinate peer and leadership, like, it all rests on my shoulders. Why we have to teach this is that is rather counterintuitive. And now more than ever, the tendency is not to accept responsibility for our stub. It's a hell of a lot easier to blame you, blame my leadership, blame external circumstances. But we have to recognize, like, I have zero control over that. What I have control over is the things that I do, the things that I say, and my sphere of influence. And so for me, this is relative. If I'm starting right now on the path and I'm in charge of myself, the first mindset I would start to adapt to this concept of extreme ownership. And from there, you carry that out. You get a small team, you build yourself an organization. To me, that is the core, really corner piece of any individual, regardless of what they do, what they're in charge of, or where they want to go. This has to be part of it, because things will go wrong. And when things do go wrong, we have this opportunity to take responsibility or shy away from it. By taking responsibility, that gives us the control to move off it, fix it, grow from it, learn from it, and then affect more people. So that is really the premise of the book, which sounds straightforward, right? We've all heard ownership, responsibility, accountability. But I think human tendency is not to do that. And everything we teach at Echelon Front is all about human tendency. That's what makes it so hard. Understanding it is one thing, doing it is another thing, as we alluded to. All the stuff is difficult. Leadership is difficult because unfortunately it's easier to be a terrible leader. It is. It's harder to put in the work. So for me, regardless of what you do, where you're at, or the vision that you have, this is something that I personally have seen play out in my life. And it just makes things a heck of a lot easier having that in my back pocket.
You know, I think I read Extreme Ownership. I think it was either 2021 or 2022 when I read it for the first time. And I took so much away from that book, but it really just that idea of extreme ownership, like no matter what goes wrong in my business, like it's my fault, and not pointing the finger at someone. It really helped me to reframe a lot of the things that were going on in my business at that time. And not just in my business, and to your point, right? Like whether it's in my company or at home with my wife and kids, like it's the idea that no matter what goes down, like it ties back to me, and it's just such a game. It was just such a game changer for me. So I wanted to mention that. But I in your I think it was with Jocko on a podcast, you were talking about a situation where you had a couple guys on your team. One that was like, I think you were like helping him shave his face or something like that. And another one that like on the runs that you guys had to do, you didn't think he was going to be able to complete the runs in the time allotment or something along those lines. And it resonated with me because it made me think about like when you have team members that are deficient in some area that you need them to be more proficient in. How do you bring people up in that situation?
I'll tell you what I used to do when I was a lot younger, and I learned the hard way. And I think life is all about ahas and epiphanies. Like that's how we tend to learn as human beings. We're pretty stubborn.
Yeah.
What a lot of people do is when here I am, Michael's on my team, Michael's slacking. The easiest thing to do is to avoid it, right? And I assume that Michael's going to figure it out. That's not really how things work. Or if I do have a position of authority or I have this influence, we leverage discipline or threats or consequences, and that changes the thing in itself. We teach a lot of ownership, and people always ask about this accountability. To your point, like, well, what about them? To me, you're trying to change someone's behavior. What you really have to analyze about people is people change for one or two reasons: because they have to or because they want to. One of those sticks. All right. When I make you change because I'm threatening you, and look, blue collar, that's kind of what we tend to do. Military first responders, we have this heavy hand from accountability where I'm the hammer, you're the nail. So I'm making you change. That's not sustainable. More importantly, when I leave you alone, you damn sure not going to do anything because I told you to do it, because you don't respect me, you don't trust me, and I don't have any influence because how I'm acting. So the key to turning this around, ironically, is going to be this concept of relationships. We teach relationships at Echelon Front, which is something we've all heard before. It does have a romantic connotation to it. But I would argue the success that I've had in my life from the Marine Corps to Echelon Front is due to the fact that I understand how beneficial relationships can be. To your point, specifically with accountability or, hey, people are slacking, they're not doing their job, I get to leverage the relationship I have to turn somebody around. So if you're struggling with, man, this person's not doing it, like that's where we have to start. I have to build trust. I have to build respect. I have to show that person that I care. And look, I'm not saying ownership is this laissez-faire, like, hey, that person doesn't do their job, like that's on me. Like I need to fix it. Ownership is not just about fault, it's about responsibility. So if we have a safety issue, like how do I mitigate that? That's a form of ownership. We have someone that's not doing their job. How do I get them up to speed? That's ownership as well. But if I want to turn somebody around, but more specifically, them to believe that change is in their best interest, what I have to have is that relationship. And so I get to leverage the respect, the trust, the influence that I have. And what tends to happen, and I could give you 10 different examples, the person tends to come around because they don't want to let you down. Like that's where the power comes in. And that's when you don't have to worry about this down the road. But the quick fix is do this or else. And we threaten, we throw consequences. And in all honesty, it works initially. Because if I tell you, Michael, hey, you need to show up on time, you need to be above the standard, or else you're going to do it right now. But when I leave or you're around other people, you're just going to kind of sit. Oh, Cody, the micromanager, is not here. And then this issue, this problem just continues to get delayed. But better yet, it's going to start to affect more people. So for me, to your point, you talked about fault. That's part of ownership, but mitigation or adding solutions, it's full circle. Because if I have a teammate that's not doing their job, that's on me. If they impact my mission, it is my responsibility to fix that, whatever that looks like. So that's how I would thread in kind of this accountability piece. But to your point, and what's really hard is it's a lot easier, just they're going to figure it out. What I have seen is they don't know that they have an issue. All right. They don't know. That's why it's a problem in itself. And so how I fix this is that relationship piece, which in the world of leadership, it's what people need to hear, but it's not what they want to hear. They want to hear some other fancy new thing that no one's ever heard before. But, relationships is the first thing we teach as the pillar of being a good leader. Is teamwork is founded on relationships that we do or don't have.
That's funny. We all want that magic pixie dust, right? We say the thing, we sprinkle it on them, like, oh, problem solved, right? Like that's it. It's all we needed.
Yes, sir.
Oh, so a lot of blue collar workers are really good at their craft, but they struggle with the leap from skilled worker to leader. Just wondering, in your experience, what's the biggest thing holding people back from making that shift? Like, how do they start closing that gap from going from worker to leader? And maybe it's relationships.
The first thing I analyze in any problem is relationships. Yeah. So that's the first thing I always want to work on. But to kind of the question in itself, during my time in the Marine Corps, and I'll get to really the cultural thing I see now, as I alluded to earlier, I believe that leadership is an afterthought, meaning we tend to teach it a little too late. Because I would watch myself or other guys, they would be really good at their job, to your point, on a Friday. And then on Monday, they show up like, hey, guess what? You're in charge. And just because they're good at the job doesn't mean they're going to be good leaders. So oftentimes we set people up for success. That happened my entire career. I was expected to lead, but not taught how to do it. As I transitioned out of Echelon Front and I would go work with a lot of people, blue collar, it's such an easy correlation because you have, a laborer that's doing great on Friday. They show up on Monday. Now they're the foreman. And it's just like, hey, it changed. But because they're not taught how to properly lead, or there's no proper expectations or roles and responsibilities, they just leverage being good at the job. So they find themselves consistently in the weeds, which tends to piss off the people around them because that's not their job anymore. So if I'm somebody that is good at my job and I want to get promoted, this is kind of your threat to extreme ownership. I'm not going to wait to be taught what to do, because what if it never comes? And so if I want to grow, I'm going to look externally. I'm going to look internally. We teach leadership at Echelon Front. There's a bunch of people that teach leadership. Like, go do this on your own. In the meantime, what I would start to do if I'm inside the trades is I would start to look around at what some of the good leaders are. I'm sure all of us can attest there are good leaders inside organizations. I would start to model that behavior. And I think for all of us, I look at my life now, I'm not a byproduct of myself. I'm a byproduct of other people. I had tremendous leaders in the military, and a lot of who I am is because of them. I had some terrible leaders in the military, and who I am today is because I wanted to be nothing like them. And so for me, that is something that we can control. If you don't have the time, if you want to use that, or you don't want to do it right now, just start to really pay attention to what other people are doing. And not just your leaders, but your peers or other people inside the organization. You can learn a lot by simply kind of detaching, kind of having an open mind and looking around to seeing what works and what does not work. That is a way you can tentatively set yourself up for success. Because the huge thing that I'd see, and I would argue to quantify it, 75% of the time I come to an organization, and I've been doing this a long time, no one's been taught leadership. Like, whether it's a foreman to the soup to the, like, whatever, they haven't been taught how to do it. But they're in these positions of authority. They have a huge scope. They're in charge of a lot of people and a lot of things. And it's like, why aren't things clicking? Well, it's because we're just expecting them to do it when we haven't taught them how to do it. And the last thing, kind of in your question overall, when we don't start to build ourselves up or start to think about what does leading look like, because it's different. When you're just on a team doing the job, like your craft, that is what you own. As a leader of a team, that's not your responsibility anymore. You have to get, we call it off the gun or out of the weeds or off the job. And, Your responsibility now is to get people more proficient at their craft. Those are two very different things. So for me, if we don't start thinking about it now, we're going to set ourselves up for failure. And then we'll find ourselves leading a team, even though we're good at the job, where the team doesn't respect us, they don't listen to us, they start to dwindle, culture starts to suck. And it's like, man, like, what is happening? So I'm going to learn early and often for myself. I'm going to pay attention. And when I step in the role, I have to really subordinate my ego and understand it's not about me anymore. It's about the team. And so I'm still proficient at my job. There's still a time and place to step in, but my goal now is to offer support when needed, make their job easier, and then give them autonomy. Like, that is the greatest gift you can give people, is control over their own destiny. Give them a say, have them create value, give them a voice, which is not what we tend to do. We tend to step on their toes. We tend to micromanage because it's easier at face value. And all that does is piss people off. Nobody likes being micromanaged, yet it's what we like to do.
That's what we do. Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, right? Like, I know, as it says on the website, you constantly observe, well, in your time in the Marines, you constantly observe leaders resorting to micromanagement, right, as their go-to solution when problems would arise. So what advice do you have for trades business owners who, they're used to doing everything themselves, they're in that situation, right? And now they're trying to figure out how to trust and lead a team for the first time to do those things. What's the pixie dust there for us?
Hey, everybody, just taking a quick break to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Curtis Lumber. Curtis Lumber is the professional's choice for home improvement. From windows and doors, roofing and siding, decks and building packages, to floors and more, trust the pros at Curtis Lumber for expert advice and daily delivery. For locations, visit curtislumber.com. That's curtislumber.com.
Now they're trying to figure out how to trust and lead a team for the first time to do those things. What's the pixie dust there for us?
The pixie dust? I wish there was a pixie dust.
The pixie dust, right?
Yes, sir. So one of the things, so we teach what we call our 4 laws of combat, which is cover and move, which is about teamwork and relationships. We teach simple, which is about communication. We teach prioritize and execute, which is about decision making. And then our last one, which is kind of the culmination, is decentralized command, which is about empowerment. Like, that's what we want to do. If I find myself micromanaging, one, I think all of us would argue that micromanaging is, I can't think of a better word, sucks to do, right? It is exhausting. It fills up our time. We don't want to do it. We like to do it because we want to mitigate risk and we want to make sure that the job is done. Essentially, we care. Oftentimes, and this is, a lot of people are going to hear me incorrectly, a lot of times leaders micromanage because they care more than the people involved. But what I recognize is a lot of times that's our justification. I'm going to micromanage Michael because this is my business, this is my team, and I want us to be successful. But the more I micromanage you, the less likely you are going to care about what is going on. And so I have this really reverse effect. And now I have a team full of people that don't care what I'm asking. And now I have this great idea on a business or an opportunity, but I have a team that's not behind it. So I want to let go. And for those that want to grow, or whether it's a team or a business, if you want to think really big picture, thinking strategically or thinking big picture is damn near impossible when you micromanage people. Why? Because you don't have the time to do it. We are very tactful focused as it is. Thinking about next week is hard for a lot of people. In a business, you're not thinking about next week. You're thinking about next month, next quarter, next year. You can't do those things if I'm always like, hey, Michael, do this. Derek, do those things. Hey, Michael, come back to me. Hey, Derek, why did you do that wrong? I'm filling up time. I'm filling up bandwidth. I'm limiting resources. And that is how people look up and they're like, man, I wanted this business to grow. But here I am 6 years later, I'm still status quo. Why? Because you haven't given the autonomy to the team. So the pixie dust is going to be the relationship, which is founded on trust, which gets me to a place where, hey, I'm the leader. You're on my team. I trust you to really do whatever you want. And I don't say that lightly. The goal of a leader is I have a team that runs on their own. More than anything, I make myself obsolete. Not because I don't care, because I do. Not because I don't want to, but because it's not my job anymore. My job is to train, coach, mentor, provide support, but also to grow the business. That's my responsibility. And so we kind of coined the phrase, or kind of the mentality, as a leader of people, you should do only the things that you can do. If Michael's proficient in the craft, Guess what? Dude, run it. Go ahead, do it. Is he going to make mistakes? Sure. Sometimes they make mistakes, and I provide support. I don't crush you because now I'm limiting this, but hey, man, what's going on? I gain perspective. I help you out, and then I do that. But there's certain things due to experience, due to, my title and organization that only I can do. But if I'm doing Michael's job, I'm doing Derek's job, I'm doing Codey's job, well, then I can't do my job, which is to grow the team, grow a bench, grow a succession plan, hire more people, create a training plan, mitigate safety, all these things which are my responsibility, I limit and I find myself failing at because of the micromanaging that I'm doing. So cutting ties with that is extremely hard. And I think a lot of times we build what I call an easy button. I'm sure we've heard the phrase easy button, right? Where Michael, you always come to me for, and most of the time it's for reassurance. Like we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. And so when Michael comes to me and I always solve Michael's problems, this does a couple of things. And so breaking this habit is really hard. If I'm the easy button for Michael, it's rather convenient. You don't got to think. There's no risk. There's no nothing. It's like, oh, Codey's just going to solve it for me. So if you are the easy button or you find yourself down the road in a leadership position, be careful of being the easy button because it's rather convenient for the other person. Additionally, and really the root of a lot of this is we like to be the easy button because we want to prove we still know what to do. And so when Michael comes to me and he's like, hey, man, I don't know what to do. I'm like, yeah, Michael, you come to me and I'll solve this problem. And that ego kind of flares up and it's like, yeah, I am the boss. You do come to me and I'll tell you what to do. And so breaking the habit is twofold. Doing their job is easier for them. Additionally, we like to be the one to tell them what to do because of ego, because of risk mitigation of those things in itself. So severing that tie is extremely challenging. But what's on the other side of that is pretty remarkable. I have a team that's autonomous, that has any problem thrown their way that they can solve. We call the epitome of leadership the silent leader. So the end state of decentralized command is I don't have to say, I don't have to do anything. Why? Because you guys know what to do to a T. You can do my job. And when you can do my job, well, then I can start to do other stuff. Not to say like I get fired. No, like I'm working on growing the business, doing the things that we've already talked about. So kind of a long-winded approach on this. Decentralized command, empowering people is a lot more challenging than we actually realize. I always tell people simple, not easy, takes time, but it's worth it. If you can put in the work, what you see on the other side is pretty remarkable.
So Codey, that happens to me still to this day quite often sometimes. And, you saying that puts it in, a very easy to understand perspective of being the easy button. What is a good way without offending or hurting feelings to push back, when you're approached to be the easy button?
I'll give you a very advanced phrase you can use. Okay. So if you, Derek, I'm the boss, you're my subordinate. You come to me, whether it's clarification, whether it's reassurance, or it's like, hey, I don't know what to do. The simple pixie dust is going to be like, hey, man, what do you think? So instead of immediately solving the problem and being like, hey, do this or do that, I stop. Hey, Derek, well, what do you think we should do? This does a couple of things. I gain perspective on your capabilities or how you think. This also shows me where kind of there may be some training, or this shows me like you already know the right answer. And so if you, Derek, tell me the right answer, now I step in and I say, hey, dude, hey, you're actually right. Go ahead and do that. And oh, by the way, next time, like you don't need my permission. Like you know what to do. That is how I mitigate that. And then over time, what you build is, look, if you know that when you go to Codey the boss, I'm always going to say like, what do you think? You're going to come to me with a solution every single time. And then I start to set some expectations or parameters, which is like, hey, man, these are the things that you can do. These are the things I still need to know. Decentralized command is not just like fire and forget, like go do whatever you want. Like there's still things you need to know inside an organization. This is kind of your wheelhouse. These are the things I need to know. And if you need me, I'm always here to support. And so what we want to build is instead of people coming up to with problems or reassurances, you've already solved the problem and you come to me to let me know. That's the goal in this. So breaking the habit is just a quick switch. I do this with, my team, but also to kind of make light of it with my kids as well. The best example, and I could use the military, I could use all the clients I've worked with, decentralized command, the best example I give you is parenting. My goal as a parent with 4 kids, 8, 7, 6, and 4, is to make myself obsolete as a parent, meaning they don't need me anymore. But the more I step in, the more I solve their problems, the more they're not free thinking, the more they don't know what to do. And I'm not naive. Like my kids, shoot, right now, sooner rather than later, they're going to face a decision where I'm not going to be there. And I want them to make the right decision, not because they're fearful of being in trouble, but they know that it's right because I've taught them how to do that. And right now, my kids come to me all the time, and I'm notorious in my household. Like they know if they go to dad, I'm going to say, well, what do you want to do? We homeschool our kids. My kids always ask for reassurance. I was like, hey, just go ahead and fill it out. Is this right? I don't know. I let them decide, and then I can coach and teach them after the fact. So for me, it's kind of a quick fix. It's a small conversation. So I would start to ask that question. I'd also reinforce why you're doing it. Hey, Derek, man, like I want you to be successful, dude. I want you to take a bigger part of this team. You can't do that if you're always coming to me. And so I would ask the question, I would reinforce it with why you're doing it. And that puts a lot of people's mind at ease. Because if you don't communicate that why, they're going to start to come up with some crazy ideas. He's like, oh, like does Codey actually not know? Or does he not care? You want to put that why to rest. Because if we don't tell people why something is happening, they'll come to that conclusion on their own.
I have to say the decentralized command idea, or however you want to phrase that, like, obviously I think all of us have heard those words at some point in time, but like until I read Extreme Ownership, I never really put it into perspective with regards to my business and the fact that every single decision that needed to be made in the company had to come to me for that decision to be made. So it was like, I used to call it, hey, Mike disease, because every 2 minutes, one of my employees would be like, hey, Mike, what do you want to do about this? Or, hey, Mike, we need to this, or, hey, we've got this issue. And it wasn't until I read that book that I started to move in the direction, which is still very much a work in progress. I definitely feel like the easy button sometimes, but to try to go down that path and like, you guys need to be able to make decisions without me. Like it's one of the many game changer ideas that I took from that book, man. I love it.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, you were talking about the ability to empower your team and that you have to like let go. I don't know if you said those words, but it made me think of something I mentioned to you before we started recording. Was I saw some clips and some reels where you were talking about detachment. Is that what you're like? You have to detach yourself from the situation. Is that kind of what that means, or am I taking that the wrong way?
You can thread it in there. To your point on letting go, like the simplistic way to communicate decentralized command is, here's what we're asking you to do. And when I say it, it sounds like a lot, and it is. I'm asking you to give up all control, but still maintain responsibility. That's what we're asking you to do. That's very hard. That's scary for a lot of people because we don't like giving up control. Hey, you guys got it. Look, I'm here if you need me. Better yet, if you fail, I'm going to step in. I'm going to fix it. That's really hard. What detachment is, and look, this is I don't want to say it's a complicated thought. It's just one of the most difficult things we teach at Echelon Front. Detachment is it helps with decision making, and so giving power to the team. That is a decision we have to make. Detachment is taking a moment in time to create space to make the appropriate decision in the right time. How we define detachment is not allowing our ego, our emotions, or our perspective to dictate what you do. So this mitigates knee-jerk reactions. This mitigates egotistical decisions, which is micromanagement, or this mitigates emotional decisions, which that's what we always do all the time, every single day anyways. Biggest thing, for me, if you want to correlate detachment to decentralized command, is oftentimes there's just like something that we're missing. And so detachment sometimes is like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't have the perspective. I don't know why Derek is coming to me. I don't know why Michael always feels he has to ask me the question. Detachment is, instead of jumping in and solving the problem, it's I stop. I analyze, I take a breath, I look around, I gain some perspective, I kind of diminish my ego a little bit, I tune down my emotions so I can clearly see what to do. And so we file detachment under prioritize and execute, which is we want to make the right decision at the right time. It's part of our decision-making process. In every decision, whether it's about relationships, growing a business, sending an email, empowering our team, ego, emotions, perspective, those are the variables that will be in every single decision that you make. And so we want to be able to control those things. But if you really think about like what we're asking, and I would argue this is one of the hardest things we teach, we're all emotional creatures. We all have egos and we all have a perspective. And that tends to lead ourselves to hot water, saying or doing the wrong thing, which can be micromanaging, which is kind of that decentralized command piece overall.
So that's kind of in line with my next question, right? Is that, obviously Echelon Front talks a lot about ego, how it can fuel confidence, but also become the thing that kills growth. So, I'm wondering, where do you see ego showing up most in the trades and with blue collar businesses? And then what's the practical move to keep it in check while you're trying to build something from scratch? Is it detachment, or is there more to it?
Detachment's going to be part of it 100%. And look, for me, when I teach, and look, I teach an hour seminar. We do an hour, we do 4 hour, we do 6 hours, we do evolution of this. So there's a lot of depth you can get into from detachment. We talk about ego a lot because one of our mindsets that we teach is a concept called humility, kind of the opposing side of ego, right? Of all the things we teach at Echelon Front, we would argue that humility is the number one characteristic of a leader. And why we say that is, traditionally speaking, when we look back to our time in the military, most of the time when people got fired, it wasn't a lack of skill set. It wasn't because they couldn't shoot, move, communicate. It's because they were egotistical and arrogant. Like, that's what it led to. Because when I have an overextended ego, or I am arrogant, like, a lot of bad things follow that. I take things for granted. I plateau. I'm always right. I have a closed mind. And all those things lead us to making the wrong decisions. And so when leaders get fired, if you think of all those things and how they correlate, that makes a recipe for a terrible leader. But to your point, a lot of times people twist that. And there's a reason why Jocko and Leif wrote a second book called The Dichotomy of Leadership. Because when we talked about, hey, we want to kind of subordinate that ego. Some people took that as like, I want no ego whatsoever. Or the emotional piece, hey, no emotions whatsoever. That's not what we're saying. I don't want you to be devoid of those things. I want you to be aware of those things. If you understand ego, just between the three of us, look, my ego on this call, to be completely honest, doesn't care about either of you. Just like your ego doesn't care about me. Our ego is about us. It only cares about us. It wants us to win at all costs. And that's when it can get scary. I've seen it happen a lot, military, now outside in the civilian sector, where people make extremely irrational, ego-based decisions, and the business suffers. Why? Because they're making this kind of malicious decision based on what they wanted to do rather than what was right. And so the line that I like to draw, because having some sense of ego is great. To your point in the question in itself, ego does bring confidence. And do we need confidence? Absolutely. If I'm going to jump out of an airplane at nighttime, I need some confidence. Otherwise, I'm never going to go out of the door. But the line for me is understanding the difference between confidence and cockiness. Those are two very different things. Confidence is, you know what, I've done this before. I'm still going to prepare. I'm still going to check. I'm still going to mitigate risks, but I'm confident in my abilities. Cockiness is, hey, I've jumped out of this airplane 75 times. I don't need to check my parachute. I don't need to check with the team. I'm already good to go. I'm arrogant about what I'm facing. And that is when a lot of people, unfortunately, they learn the hard way. And to me, I think life is all about vicious cycles. We get kind of competent at our job. We get confident in our abilities. We take things for granted. We learn the hard way. We get complacent. And it's just, life is like this. And so for me, and the unfortunate reality of human nature is complacency is coming whether we like it or not. Whether it's at work, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's relationship with kids, it's very easy to get caught up and take things for granted because of the time. So for me, there's really two big catalysts. One is time, and to quantify it, as I observe a lot of people, I would argue anytime you're in a position or inside a certain job for about 5 to 7 years, I would argue you're at the greatest risk of complacency. New people really aren't prone to complacency because they have an inherent fear of messing up. Like, I remember when I first started in the Marine Corps, there was no chance I was getting complacent. I checked everything like 17 times because I was afraid to make mistakes. But that 5-year clip, 5 to 7, you've been doing the same thing, you have a ton of experience. And look, experience is great, but experience also leads us to, I've seen this a bunch. Nothing's ever gone wrong in the last 5 years. We start to take things for granted. I don't need that piece of gear. I don't need to do the tailboard. I don't need my pro, whatever it is. And then bam, we learn the hard way. So that's one catalyst. The other catalyst is what I call I've made it mentality. So oftentimes we're vying for this new spot, whatever that looks like, a new position. We put a lot of work in, take a lot of effort. and we make it, and we kind of relieve. We kind of drop back, and it's like, I just got promoted, and then we start to slack. And then we get reminded by somebody or something like, hey, we can't do that. We have a huge heart for complacency. I mean, just like in terms of the trades in itself, there's an inherent risk and people can get hurt or killed. In the military, it was no different. And complacency for us, the awakening or the moment in time that we reflected on was, unfortunately, what tended to happen was somebody got hurt or somebody got killed. And that was just like, bam, like we can't let that happen. But unfortunately, and really the root of this whole thing is we're stubborn people. And we love listening to our ego because it knows exactly what to say and when to say it. You don't need to call Michael. You don't need to bring that piece of gear. You've done this 1,000 times. And so it's really there to convince you to get complacent. And so I don't want to eliminate it. I want to minimize it. And if I find myself getting a bit cocky I start to not follow SOPs, I start to not do my tailboard or whatever it is for whoever's listening on the call, like that's the moment in time where I dive in. And that is how you can extend the life on not having these blips on the radar. Is it possible to eliminate it? It is. But you have to be extremely intentional, not just today, not just tomorrow, but every day, because it's creeping in whether we like it or not.
I love that. I'm like unpacking it in my head here. All right, one more question, and then we'll jump over to the Patreon side here, so we don't keep you on all day. At a conference for craft workers, you close with the line, "If not you, then who?" And it was said as kind of like a battle cry for ownership, and for someone standing at the crossroads of staying as an employee or betting on themselves to start a business. What does actually answering that question look like in practice?
Yeah, so that is a stolen phrase from a Marine Corps officer that passed away a little bit ago, early times in the war, by the name of Travis Manion. And Travis Manion was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps, served overseas, and unfortunately was shot and killed. But when asked before he was deploying or why he wanted to enlist, basically understanding that, hey, there's an inherent risk that you may die overseas. Like, why would you want to do that? And Travis's answer was like, well, if I don't go, like, who's going to do it? And so for me, and part of my journey, not to get kind of too extensive, is hearing things like that when I was younger, because I was a bit younger than Travis, and I didn't join until 2010, and this happened before. Hearing things like that really prompted on like I can make a difference, and if I don't, who's going to do it? We're going to wait for somebody else. And so I love talking about Travis and honoring another Marine Corps person that unfortunately, perished overseas. And so oftentimes I tend to cling to that. To your point, specifically about extreme ownership, as that's our most prominent thing that we teach at Echelon Front. Like, if you're not going to take responsibility for your life, like, who's going to do it? If you're not going to go above and beyond to get more proficient at your craft, if you're not going to go seek more education so you can meet that new position, like, nobody's going to save you. Like, nobody's knocking down my door or calling myself and like, hey man, like, you got a problem, I'm here to solve it. And so oftentimes we have this unfortunate, what I call victim mentality, which is, hey, bad things happen, world's out to get me, like, somebody come save me. And I hate to say it, but that's not how the world works. Like, if I have the worst day of my life today, not a lot of people are going to know, and not a lot of people are going to care. There's 8 billion people on this planet. And so for me, look, do bad things happen? 100%. But that's my responsibility to fix. If I'm in a hole, the answer is not sit there. The answer is grab a shovel and let's get out of this. And so for me, whether it's like, hey, I want a promotion, cool. What are you going to do about it? Or if you want to get kind of more extensive and more severe, you got a terrible marriage. Okay, what are you going to do about it? You have a strange relationship with your kids. Okay, how are you going to fix it? You don't get along with your boss. You're not trained proficiently. Your culture sucks. What are you going to do about it? Because if you don't do something, who's going to do it? And who's going to do it? You have to understand the worst case scenario is potentially nobody. And to me, the kind of the common comical phrase is like, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Controlling what other people do and how they change is one thing. Controlling what I do and the things that I say and the things that I do, that is within my wheelhouse. And I think we talk about control the controllables. You control a lot more than you think. A lot more. And so if I don't do something, if I don't say something, then you better be content with where you're at. Because not a lot of people are coming to help you, ask for help, do the things for you. Like, it's on you. And that's really kind of the plot of extreme ownership. It's my responsibility, my success, my failure, not only for me, but for my team, for my organization mission, it rests on my shoulders. It's on me.
Love it. Codey, we're going to jump over to the Patreon side of things, but before we do that, if people are interested in hearing more about you, learning more about you, working with you, where do they find you?
Yes, sir. So simply put, echelonfront.com. That's where you can find me, the other instructors, all the things we do at Echelon Front, which we have a huge umbrella of how we teach and how we train. On the social media side, with homeschooling 4 kids and being on the road so much, I only got one. So I just dabble with Instagram, which is just Codey.Gandy. You can find me on there. I'm on there from time to time, but always happy to help. Always happy to jump on a call or answer an email if anybody has anything moving forward.
Love it. Awesome. Codey, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to asking you a couple more questions here on the Patreon side. And of course, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you to our sponsors for the help that you give us and the great work that we're able to do because of you out in the community. Of course, you can find us at bluecollarstartup.io, and we're on Apple, Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube. And hopefully we'll see you guys all over on the Patreon side.
And that wraps up another episode of Blue Collar Startup. A big thank you to our sponsors, 5 Towers Media, Daigle Cleaning Systems, Daigle Fire Solutions, The Michaels Group, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, Peoplease, and Catamount Consulting for making this podcast possible. And thank you for tuning in. If you learned something or felt inspired, connect with us on our website at bluecollarstartup.io or email us at hardhat.bcsu@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions and topic ideas. Help us spread the word by sharing the show and following us on social media for updates. Until next time, keep on building, keep on dreaming, and keep hustling like your future depends on it.